everybody. We're back again. I'm so lucky to have not only an amazing coach to talk to today, but also a dear friend who I got to tell you, he's the type of person in my life that we could be in my car and I could say hello to him, and next thing you know, we blink and we're in New York City. Because I could not talk to this guy enough. So who do I got for me today? I've got the head coach of Milwaukee School of Engineering's varsity hockey team, Mr. Graham Johnson. Coach, I'm so happy you're here. Finally, the superpowers are together. I feel like singing Peaches and Herb. Reunited and it feels so good. Okay, so
great to be on. Great, really excited for this, and yeah, thanks for having me.
So, buddy, I mean, I'm just going to give a quick synopsis here of your incredible career, right? You've been coaching for years. You've touched almost every single major league in the country, from being a head coach at one point in time with Des Moines in the USHL to being Mr. Everything in the EHL with Apple Corps. 5 years of Division I college hockey with schools like AIC and UMass Amherst, right? I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now you've taken on this new venture, right? You're now at Milwaukee School of Engineering. What are you going through now with everything going on in the world today? How is this affecting your program right now?
Yeah, I think there's been some negatives to a degree, just in terms of recruiting. It's just hard. It's hard for. I think one of the biggest advantages we have is our campus and our facilities and what we have to offer kids. And when you can't come physically and see that and really get a feel for the campus and a feel for the city, it makes it challenging. That being said, when guys eventually do come and see it, very, very rarely is anyone going to be disappointed. So that's been a challenge through this whole thing for us and for players. They're frustrated. They're making a big decision in their life. They also want to be sure and just kind of get that gut feeling about a school, about a coach. So there's those challenges. I think from within our team, although we are now more distant from each other, in some ways I think we're a little bit closer, and we've had to really figure out some ways to kind of stay connected and stay together, and the accountability piece. And everybody says that, it's a fun buzzword that everybody likes to use, but now with our guys, with nobody watching you, and with some guys no real gym facilities to be able to use, how are they still continuing to get better and try and work and get stronger? And I think our guys have done a tremendous job of kind of uniting and finding new ways to compete from a distance. I think has been the biggest thing. They've broken up into some teams, and they're doing some extra cardio competitions against each other. They're doing them within the team itself. And so all of that stuff is tremendous. And I think it's going to be a really big advantage when hopefully life does get back to a little bit more normal. And I think our guys will be better for it. So, and if this were just a normal spring semester, we probably wouldn't be doing, things like that. So it's been, I think there's been a lot of positives on that side.
Well, I'll say this, for any of the people that listen to our pod today, I got to be 100% transparent in that I've had the good fortune to see you guys in action, to meet a good core of your team, visit with the guys last year, visit with your assistant athletic director as well as your head athletic director, and phenomenal guys you have there, great leadership as a whole. And to see such a young, vibrant program that you've got assembled right now, and phenomenal facilities. Didn't know what to expect when I got there, but wow, what a beautiful school you have. I was really impressed with the all around, I guess I would say, focus level, all around mm, lack of better terms, business acumen in terms of how these kids on your team are so focused and career oriented. And to hear you now say that they're bonding away from things and they're reaching out to each other and they're connecting, it would be incredible to see how that focus that they have as students, very intelligent students,
Hmm.
could potentially transfer over to them connecting and seeing what those inner competitions could be like,
Yeah,
because it would be interesting to see how motivated and creative some of your engineers
sure.
because actually get. So I'm curious to know, like what kind of competitions do you have going on right now? What are you guys doing? Are they zooming each other? Are they working out together? It'd be funny to actually see what they're doing because they're
Right.
so smart.
Yes. Well, and that's it. I think when you, because of their high level of intelligence, their competitiveness, I think when you give them an assignment like this,
Yeah.
their creativity, really can shine through. And I think that's ultimately my job as the head coach, was to kind of facilitate this and say, hey, look, guys, you know, this is the circumstances we're in, but life still has to go on here. We can't just shut it down, and we
Yeah.
really got to try and take advantage. Here's what I'm looking to do, but here's the ball. You guys take it and you run with it. And it's amazing to see what highly intelligent, highly competitive, creative people can come up with given that type of circumstance. And again, it's been really entertaining to see, and just fun to watch, because again, you're not right there. And I don't think it's necessarily turned into something now that every athlete knows that they have to be in the gym and they have to do
Yeah.
conditioning, and it's not, and it can be work, and it is. But I think our guys have found a way to really make that work into a little bit more fun, and that they've hopefully enjoyed some of the extra stuff now, and you can hear the banter back and forth a bit of, you didn't really get that time, or
Yeah. Yeah.
and now guys are doing it again to try and better so it's been really great to see.
It's interesting, and I guess for me, so that I make it clear to the people who'll be listening to this, right? In the past couple of weeks, I've had a chance to talk to athletes in all different regards, and one group of guys are a pro cycling team, and what they do is they get on, they Zoom, and they ride together and they train together, right? And they rip on each other, right? Yeah, whatever. And then no, Monday of this week, I had a chance to speak to a present NHLer, and he is playing for the New York Islanders right now, and he's living in Bridgeport, and he's kind of in complete lockdown because where he lives with his girlfriend, he's got nothing. Like he's like, Doc, I don't even have I don't have workout things. So he's got a little beach of some sort in Bridgeport, and what he's done is he's taken like I guess it'd be old milk crates or whatever, filled them up with sand. Like he's going rustic, right?
Sure.
So in my mind, right, when I'm saying before, like what are the guys doing and how they interacting with technology, and knowing how intelligent these guys are, I guess I'm bunny hopping our conversation and thinking, if we know that there's athletes who are zooming each other to stay in shape and they're competing, and then we know that there's other guys and gals that are out there that are probably having to go rustic, with literally going through their apartment, their condo, their garage, and saying, how can I Rocky Balboa this a la Rocky Four, right? We're training in the barn, right? Training in the barn.
Siberia, here we go.
Right, rocks. I need more rocks, right?
Yeah.
I can only imagine what your guys are doing because they're probably building things, right?
Well, right.
So it makes me wonder, right? Like, what are these guys doing, right? So
It makes me wonder. It makes me slightly nervous.
yeah,
But at the same time, more curiosity than
yeah.
scared. We still want their well-being to be intact, but no, it is fun. Guys were doing body squats, and then
Wow.
all of a sudden, I filled my backpack with books, and
Yeah,
and other guys, I grabbed some paint. It just is. It's been
it's crazy.
when they have that ability to push each other.
So I saw something a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Patrick Marlowe, but I could be completely wrong.
Sure.
And it was going around, I think it was Instagram, where NHL guys were curling their dogs, right? So they were curling their dogs, right? It's so funny, right? So like you wonder what's going to come out next, but uh, I think it's phenomenal what you're doing and bringing your band together. I think it's so awesome that coaches have the insight and the knowledge to I even take it past that. I mean, even the care, like the want to get together with the gang, right? Because it's so easy to just kind of chalk it up to it is what it is, and we'll see everybody when the band is lifted off. But that's not what you're doing, and I think that's amazing. And I wonder, like, is this something that is being done across all the teams at MSOE, or is this something that's just you?
No, I think from everything I've seen, whether it's on social media or being in contact with the other coaches, that I think everybody's trying to do things in their own unique way, and whether it's through Zoom meetings as a team or smaller groups, I think to some level, every coach is really trying to take advantage of the time to stay connected with their athletes, because I think at our level, especially, you do spend so much time with them to a degree, and you care. These are your kids, and that's certainly how I treat it. They're away from home, they're they're really under your watch. They're your kids, and so for me, I want to be as connected as I can be. It's very challenging for me to do it at the moment, just given my life circumstances with two little kids at home. It's tough to do a Zoom meeting without getting interrupted, without having to stop the 2-year-old from either burning the house down or herself. But so it's challenging, but it's been great to see the different ways that all of our coaches have been keeping in contact and keeping their teams together.
You said something a little while ago that got my brain spinning, and you're proving it now in the words you share. And it was, we're alone now, but we're together, and we're not in front of each other. So it's kind of up to us to do our thing and to toe the line for our team. And it's funny because everything you're talking about right now, in my mind, goes back to the word character, right? Like, true character, as they say, is the person you are when no one's watching, right? So when no one's watching and you've had all this downtime, what have the guys been doing, right? And I think it's great that you're bringing that to the forefront, to the front of their brains, and saying, hey guys, you know what, we're going to get through this. Now, how do we stay accountable to that, right? And I'm wondering, does any of that indirectly kind of come on up when you guys are having conversations, like, or is it just a bonding session? What's that like when we talk about bringing it to that next level of accountability?
I think it's a little of both. I think there are times we kind of directly address it with guys, especially with more of our leadership group.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we know we need this, and we know we need to get better. I need to get better. Last year, and now as you have all this time to reflect, lots of mistakes that I made and things that I need to improve on. So I'm trying to get better, as a head coach, so that I can be better for them. That's my job, and I want to be better for them. So the flip side of that, if I'm asking my players to get better, obviously I've got to be doing the same. So I think with our leadership, we kind of directly talk about it, and hey, here are the things that we need to address, things we need to be better. We need to continue to up our standard and have that growth mindset as a program. With other guys, it's just kind of indirect, of just in conversation, hey, how the workout's been, have you been able to put on any weight for our guys that need to gain some muscle, or vice versa, guys that maybe need to lose some, hey, have you been able to, so you work it in indirectly, and no matter what, I feel like as you talk to your players, your sport or your team eventually kind of comes back up in conversation, right? And naturally so. But so yeah, sometimes it's direct, and other times it's a little bit more indirect.
Last year, again, having some insight you're impressed with the leadership and the young guys coming up with your program, and it's great to hear you talk about how the guys are stepping up, and it makes me wonder when I hear things like that, what are some of the goals that maybe they are setting for themselves, as well as what some of the goals are for you, because one of the things that you mentioned a couple times in conversation building up to today, and you said it just a few seconds ago, is there are things that you want to improve on your own, like for yourself, right? So I'm curious to know, like, what's the leadership group talking about right now in terms of the wants that they want of their team and their teammates, and what are some of the things that you want for yourself?
Yeah. I think, for the players, I think they really, because it's going to be a largely older group. We're going to have 12, 13 seniors, number of juniors. So now it's going to be more of a veteran group. To a lot of these guys now, it's their last kick at the can. So I think they really want to make the most of this year and really take advantage of the talent that we have and what we kind of started last year, and really learn from those hard lessons, of just, again, never taking an opponent for granted, and trying to keep that same standard of operation from the very beginning all the way throughout. And so I think that's what their kind of main focus is. For me, it's a lot of things, but I think communicating better to my players is one for sure. And I had a very good friend of mine, as we were talking about, I want our guys, our players, and our alums to really have the same sense of pride in our program that I've had at various places that I played at, and I was very fortunate to play at. And kind of, how do you do that without the rich tradition and history? How do you create that? So I definitely want to do that. But I think our identity, needs to become more clear to our players. And somebody asked me if we asked your team what your identity was, well, how many different answers would you get? And for me right now, it might be 25, so that's where I need to get much better at more clearly defining who we are, what we're going to be great at. Now the players need to have ownership in that. Yeah. And we'll have those conversations with our guys, because again, they're the ones that are going to be doing it, right? It's a player's game. So I've got an idea of what I want us to be, but they're the ones that have to go and do it. So they're going to have ownership in this as well. But I think for me, it's just better clarifying things with our players, making sure we're all on the same page, in any number of areas along the way. Because I think at times last year that got lost. And also for me, I want to work more with our leaders. And that was another area last year I did not do enough of. That, you can always point to and say, hey, I didn't have good leadership. My subordinates, or we just didn't have enough down there. Well, whose fault is that? And that's mine, right? You're at the top of the pyramid. It's my responsibility to train and make sure these kids are better leaders, not just for our hockey team, but in life and in the jobs that they're eventually going to go on to. So those are two areas for me that I really want to improve on and get better at.
I think that's phenomenal. I mean, that's phenomenal. What you're saying. I guess, when we talk about such deep topics like what we're talking about, improving communication, leadership, honing leadership skills, developing leadership skills, and the big one, identity. Like, oh my God, that's just huge. Like, I think that's wow. Like, you don't really hear many people talk about creating that. You'll hear them talk about maintaining it, or the idea of maintaining it, but creating it. It's a really interesting topic you bring up. So let me ask you this: when you're creating that identity, is that something that you do based on what you see that you have that you're working with now? Or is that to say that's something more in a global perspective? Like, I want this to be synonymous with the program. How do you define that
I think
that
it has
identity.
to be a little bit of both, because again, you don't want to necessarily. I think you have to take a look at what you have and
Right.
who, who's on the bus and
Right.
what strengths they bring and what they have, and really obviously try and maximize their strengths. But you can't do that every year, right? You can't necessarily change your identity
Right.
every year. You can tweak it, you can make your adjustments, but so I think it's finding a fine line of when we describe MSOE hockey to people, to recruits, we have a very clear understanding, and they will have a very clear understanding of what that is and what our identity is, and that our players live that identity on a day-to-day basis. So you want it to kind of be both. You want to be able to kind of combine some attributes of what we currently have with what we will continue to look to bring in, whether, and you can pick one: competitiveness, work ethic, right? A school like ours is very, very challenging, as you quickly learn. The academics are extremely challenging for our kids. So our kids' work ethic already is off the charts, So I think that's something that's got to be part of your identity, right? Like nobody's going to outwork us because nobody outworks us in the classroom. Well, nobody's going to outwork us here either, right? So again, I think it's combining a little bit of both, but also it's got to come from them too.
Right.
And I think with direction and with, some boundaries to it, but because they're the ones that got to live. It's easy. They can't be told. They've got to have some stake in it.
It's interesting, because part of my world is spent working with teenagers and working with the young kids who dream of playing for you someday. And when you're working with that group, you often get parents that will come up and it's almost like they're looking for that. What's the golden ticket? What's the golden key that will unlock that moving forward, right? And some of the things you bring up spark in my mind some of the things that I share with parents, and it's to say that if there's a certain program that you aspire to be a part of, to join, to whatever it may be, take the time and look at them. Take the time to study them, watch them. And what I'll say to them is things like, the young hockey player who's trying to go from, say, midget hockey to junior hockey, junior to collegiate, right? That next level, whatever it may be, they walk different. They talk different. Mm-hmm. They carry themselves different. They're just another echelon above where you are right now, right? And when I think of that, as I hear you share identity, and we talk about work ethic, and we talk about who we are away from the facility, I think it's really incredible because you're describing for people what your next level is like. Mm-hmm. And you're also describing for people who might be interested in coming to MSOE, hey, listen, these are the people we're looking for. These are the job requirements in our description that we're looking for, right? So this is how we walk, how we talk, how we play, how we carry ourselves. And when people see us walking down the street, they know, oh, that's a MSOE hockey player, right? So I'm curious to know, like when you're sitting down with your coaching staff and you're thinking of, we want to create what that level, that ism, that whatever you want to call it, that level of expectation. It would be interesting to see like what you're going to put in that pot, right, and cook it up.
Yeah, and I think, sorry about that. A big one's going to be competitiveness. That I think, and as I've talked to junior coaches as we recruit, and what's his compete level like? Yes. And you start to hear that less and less of, wow, off the charts compete, and it's a little concerning. I just talked to one yesterday. He's going, I might only have one or two guys that really compete at a level high enough to kind of get you there, and it's hard. It's hard to hear, and and I think it just kind of starts a little bit lower. And as you deal with younger youth and teenagers, and I think one of the big things that I would say is, look, if you want to get to that level, you've got to be willing to compete, and that's got to be there. You've got to hate to lose. You've got to hate to have somebody take your spot or get better than you. Because, if you watch, as I'm sure a lot of people have watched the Last Chance, now with Jordan and the Bulls. And again, I'm from New England, so, I've been around, the Tom Brady era here in New England. And it's a lot of it just comes down to compete level.
Yeah.
That, these guys aren't going to work harder than me. They're not going to be better than me. And I think sometimes there's so many options for kids now that through youth and all the way up, that the path can be a little easier. That as soon as you get cut, or as soon as you're not playing in a certain role, you have the opportunity to go somewhere else where your role might be enhanced, or you just don't necessarily have to work through some of those adversities. And I think along the way, where it can help you maybe technically or tactically as an athlete, I think it takes away from that competitiveness of having to really push yourself to maximize what you have to try and get better.
So this is a phenomenal point you bring up, and I guess I would ask you this, because again, you've coached at the elite of elite level in junior hockey in this country, where literally I personally know kids that I've coached, I've worked with, who have been backup goalies in the USHL, played maybe under 10 games, and still gotten scholarships to D1 programs just because they were there, right? So that, I don't want to throw out false stats, but in my mind, that league as a whole, I mean, it's got to have a close to 90 to 92% hit rate for guys who play in that league and move on to a D1 school. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's probably even higher. It's probably close. I think it's like 98%.
Phenomenal, right? So now, I mean, you've coached at the elite of the elite. From there, you go on to Division I hockey, where you're working with guys whose dreams at that level are not just getting their education paid for, but they're going on in the NHL. And I hear you talk about compete. I really wish there was some way we could put up a billboard sign in every town across North America to explain the importance of that one characteristic. Right now, in your world, they're looking at skating, they're looking at size, they're looking at shooting, read and react, some brains. But the overall importance of that word compete, I don't think it's ever been discussed as much as it's being discussed now. I don't remember that. Like
I agree, because I feel that was almost at least what everybody had.
Yeah.
You could at least compete. You might not be the most skilled or the fastest skater, or you may not be able to throw the ball at 94, but man, you got it out and you compete and whatever. And now I think it's gone so much the other way. And wow, super skilled and has all the talent in the world, but in a battle situation, they try and skill their way out of it, and it doesn't work. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
I feel like a real old guy when again I'm having conversations with parents and coaches and kids and whatnot, and when we talk about this importance, like the overwhelming importance of discussing compete, I feel like an old guy when I say to people, all throughout my career in minor hockey, junior hockey, college hockey, I don't think I ever heard a coach in all those 30 some odd years of playing the game ask for compete. I think we got yelled at because just maybe our effort level wasn't there because our heads were up in the clouds. I remember being yelled at because we just played poorly. I remember getting yelled and screamed at because our heads weren't in the game. We're not reading and reacting. Maybe we're just over focusing on competing rather than being calm, cool, collective, and sticking to the strategy that was put in place. But I don't ever remember a coach calling a timeout in between periods, having to say, we need to pick up our level of compete. It was more, let's get focused, let's get in position, let's do what we said we're going to do, let's stick to the game plan, everyone buy in. But it's not, hey guys, can you try harder? And I guess the question that I would have for you, and again, for those people who don't know the game of hockey, who don't know what it's like to be a hockey coach at a Division I, Division III level, or even elite level at the USHL, you're talking about the only sport on the planet where high school kids can be traded. You're talking about the only sport on the planet where kids literally need to leave their homes and live with another family in order to pursue their dreams and career ambitions, right? So it's very unique, not to mention, I know I'm coming across as a real bias and homer guy, but the reality of it is it's the fastest game on the planet where everyone has a weapon and you basically, plain and simple, it's the only sport where you can't run out of bounds. You know, even arena football, you can jump over the boards if you didn't want to get hit by a guy. But the reality of it is, throwing all this stuff where I'm sounding like a cheerleader for the sport, it talks about the level of character of a person that needs to be in place in order to succeed. But yet we still have to talk about compete. I'm blown away by that. Now, I'm grandstanding here and to lead up to my question. And my question is, and I think you can feel it coming across the plate. Why do you think compete is as low as it is, which has now created a whole new column that has to be added into your scouting, right? Why do you think it's dropped off over the last few years? I've got a couple of ideas on why I think it is, but I'm curious to know from a person professionally who's done it at every level, why do you think it's dropped off?
Yeah. I think for me, and the answer might surprise you a tad, but I think it's fear.
Fear?
That we've lost fear.
We've lost fear. Oh, I like it.
No more fear of getting cut. And it's funny, I worked the National Select 17 Festival a couple of years ago, and we asked and they're trying out these are the top 150 kids in the U.S. They are trying out to make a team to go play. Oh no. Sorry. So these kids are competing to make a team to go play internationally, and the other coach that I worked with, Bill Mancini, asked this question to our kids, and it shocked me. He said, "How many of you guys in the last 5 to 10 years have even had to try out for a team?" And I think one hand went up just to appease them. And the point is, these kids haven't had to try out for anything. They've been kind of handpicked and offered and taken away from one organization to play here, and they have not lost. There's just no fear of let's say going to a tryout and getting cut and not making that team. There's no fear of, okay, if I do get on that team, there's no fear of, well, if I'm not on the first line or on the power play, or if I'm not the starting pitcher, or then I'm just going to leave and go somewhere else where I will be. And it might be a slightly lesser team, but again, I used to be terrified to miss practice because I was afraid I was going to lose my spot, and that's gone. And at so many levels, I think the lack of fear has really taken away from kids' competitiveness, and I think that's a big. There's others. Don't get me wrong, and that's obviously just my opinion, but I think that's a big one. Is that nobody's afraid anymore. If they're unhappy, they get cut, or they're not happy with the current playing situation. Okay, I'll just move on somewhere else where I will be happy.
Yeah. it's amazing because I've got goosebumps going up and down my body right now hearing you talk about that, because I couldn't agree with you more. You know, I had an incredible conversation a few years ago, which ties into how we've been able to talk today, with a coach in Toronto, and we were discussing the need for fear, and then how we battle back from fear, and we talked about this huge word, which is like a very nice, shiny, um, aesthetic looking word that shields us from discussing fear, and it's called resilience, right? When we see resilience, it's just like, wow, it's a powerful word that means so much. But really, when you crack it open, what is resilience? Resilience is overcoming fear, in my opinion, right? You've been
Yep.
knocked down, can you get back up? Or you can sit there and go, oh my God, they knocked me down. It's going to knock me down again. And that fear, I think, like maybe a part of the reason of a lack of fear is there's so many options for kids now.
Right.
Like so many options. I
Yep.
mean, there's leagues everywhere that borderline parents, and I hear it in coaches all the time talking about, I had to overcommit to this parent, and I had to overcommit to this kid, and I had to convince them with A, B, C, and D of gifts and whatnot, right? So it's really almost like a try in rather than a try out,
Yep.
is
Right.
what it's become now, right? And it's really incredible because hearing this, when my colleague Peter and I started to put together the framework for Headset Sports, we had some people that were, you know, giving us a lot of encouragement. And I don't think I've ever told you this story, but what happened was we had a friend, a colleague back home in Toronto. He was the head hockey coach of a very, very prestigious program in the city at St. Michael's College, which is an all-boy Catholic school that's pumped out hundreds of guys who've gone on to play in the NHL, Division One college hockey, you name it. Their wall of fame is comparable almost to the NHL Hall of Fame. And we showed him the outline on paper of what our product was going to be, and what we were kind of pulling together. And his mouth dropped, and he had said to us, at this point in time, we're only focusing on using on individuals. And he was the one that said to us, why are you not developing this for teams? And we thought, oh, you know, we could. We just kind of wanted your opinion. What do you think? And the gentleman's name is Chris DiPiero. And Chris was one of the guys that said, listen, I need to tell you something. I need this right now. And at the time, Chris was, I think, just moved into the position he had with St. Mike's. And he had previously been the general manager of one of the most prestigious junior hockey teams in all of Canada with the Oshawa Generals. So this is a guy who's like, he sees Bobby Orr every other day. You know, he's saying hi to guys like, you know, Eric Lindros, like it's nothing, right? And these are phenomenal hockey players, legends in the game, who are both Hall of Famers, right, in the National Hockey League. And it was then that he educated both Peter and I all of the behind the scenes scenarios of what's going on with today's athlete. Like, uh, you know, Graham, I could not believe it when he told me this. He said, Jay, what do you think the worst day of the week is for me? And I'll never be able to get this out of my head. So I'm thinking he's a general manager of one of the most prestigious teams in all of hockey, right? Not just North America. And I said to him, knowing you're a GM, maybe Thursday, Friday. He goes, well, why that? I said, well, you know, in my little brain, I'm thinking if you're going on a road trip, there's things to get done. You got to travel. There's a lot going on as a team gets on the road. He goes, you know, that makes sense. He goes, but no. The worst day for me is Monday. Now, again, my little brain, I'm thinking, well, yeah, you've come back from the trip, you've been gone, who knows, 12-hour bus ride, whatever it may be, right? And that's what I say to him. And he says, no, it's having to deal with all the phone calls from the parents. And I was blown away. At the most elite of elite teams, levels, whatever it may be, he talks about mom and dad calling and having to explain at the most elite level, right? Like, blown away. And then we start talking about mental strength, and we start talking about mental toughness and being able to get the inside track on how to help their athletes become more resilient. And that's when we started really engaging in headset, in which I know your team was a user of this year. And we're so happy you guys used it. I guess my question to you is where do you think this change has happened, like, and it's come from? Like, how is it that compete is just now something we have to build?
Because they don't have to fail anymore.
Mm,
Exactly that. Your mom and dad are calling your junior coach because you were a healthy scratch Friday night, and maybe you were back in on Saturday, but your ice time was pretty limited, or you got taken off the power play, or your minutes weren't what they were last weekend. And these kids just haven't had to fail. And I think that's where all of this started. And obviously the growth of youth sports and all of the insanity that have come along with them. But I think at the end of the day, it's they don't have to fail anymore. And again, that fear of failure, when you've, and again, like going back to like the Michael Jordan, when he got cut from his team in high school, that's a defining moment to a degree, because it just, wow, what did that unleash, right? That failure. But if you never had to experience that, and we see it at our level, that, and I saw it at the Division I level, that you've got kids that have never been benched, they've never had to be a healthy scratch, and now as they've climbed the ladder and the pyramid has gotten smaller, you know, and they get sat, or they don't make, at the 17 camp, they don't make that team. It's like, wait a minute, what? I didn't make a team. I'm Graham Johnson, the superstar who's been handpicked and told how great I am all my life, and I've never had to fail at anything because I've never been put in that position. Sure, why would your compete level be that strong? And again, I think that's where it started to go south.
It's interesting because, as a therapist as well, right? I see this in young people where maybe failure has hit them later in life for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's when heavy drama starts, right? That's when heavy issues begin, because they've never fallen down before.
Yeah. And Doc, like you said before, you're talking about like getting hit, getting knocked down, right? Like I had an older brother, so I got beat up and knocked down a lot.
Right.
But if you've never been knocked down, how would you know how to get up?
Right. And it's amazing what that can do for you, right? Like it's amazing. And knowing the power, the value of that, right? It's interesting because you and I were talking a little before we got on the pod, and I was telling you that today my family and I we're adopting a puppy, and the thought in my mind to put credit to what you're saying was, well, maybe we should bring in an older dog as well to help guide this, so we don't lose our minds here, right?
Yep.
And I wonder, with all of that, having that older person mentor the younger one, do you see that now in the locker room when you have this kind of cloud of fear of failure, and maybe everyone's feeling it? Are there people in your locker room now that you can see that can help bring that out of a person, that, okay, I'm knocking you down, but that doesn't mean you're a bad person. I need you to be resilient and build back up. Like, do you have any of that assistance?
We do. I think we have some. I really do. I think we've got some older guys that have been kind of through the ringer, whether through juniors or transferring, or just life experiences that they've kind of now lived through, and to go, hey, look, I know Coach benched you tonight, or you got sad, you were a scratch. Look, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And we had some guys last year that were good at it. I think this year we'll have even more that are a little bit better, or not better, just different, I should say, is the best way to put that. So we do. I think we've got we've got a few guys. It's just it will be recognizing those type of situations that
Right.
we as coaches and as leaders may have to at times help them and kind of guide like, hey, look, you know, we so and Johnny's been a scratch for the last 2 weekends. I think he's getting a little bit down. You know, why don't you check on him, see how he's doing? Um,
Yes.
so I think we'll have some guys that'll be really good at that. Um, because again, it's just getting out of the mindset, and that's the great thing about our game that because you, Jason, didn't play as much as you wanted to, there's something bigger here. There's a team goal that's
Right.
above your individual playing time, and we have to understand that. And while we all might not like our role or to the extent of how we're helping our team, we're all still helping our team, and we're all still valued. So hopefully we'll have enough guys that can continue to deliver that message so that we don't have to, but it'll mean more to a kid coming from another teammate versus myself or my assistant coach, putting an arm around them and telling them that.
I think some of the brilliance in what you're sharing throughout our talk today rests in developing that closeness with your players that you can then use to mentor your leaders, so that when you have these moments where you need to inject tough love, or the first wave or experience of no, it's not going to be what you want, right? Or just hearing the word no, just
Right.
hearing the word no, right? um I think it's so important, that little thing that I know you do so well, and I know this because I know you, and knowing your players, and maybe knowing how much they can handle on that first load of no, you're not going to get what you want today, and no, that's not the role you're going to play on our team, and no, you're not going to be the guy that just hops the boards with a minute left. You're going to wait. And I say these things because I think it's really important for any of the young coaches to know that you need to have that, or by accident you're just throwing 1,000 pounds of weight on the back of a 10-pound burro that you expect to go climb up a hill. And I guess my question to you is, are you aware of the fact that you're doing that, or is that something that you need to remind yourself a lot of, hey, I got to watch how I do what I do with certain guys?
I know I'm aware of it, but it's also knowing that at times I've got to be better at it. And again, going back to what I said about communicating with our guys, and I need to be better at that, to where I can have that conversation can be a lot more seamless. But I'm always aware of how your message is being relayed, not only to that player directly, but to how other people that are seeing this, how are they interpreting it, right? Everybody's eyes tell a different story. And so if I'm talking to one player on the ice during practice individually, if I'm losing my mind and screaming and berating that player, well, maybe that player needed that at that exact moment. But at the same time, I've got 25, 26 other kids sitting there watching this, not knowing really the context of what's going on, going, well, boy, if I got a problem, I'm not going to talk to them, right? So I think you always have to be aware of how you're being perceived by that player individually, but also by the group.
Well, it brings me to another point here that I think is so important, that I constantly have to share with coaches when we talk about just coaching, how you become a better coach. And it's almost like, my colleague Peter, who's a university professor at the school that we played hockey together at, he's got to remind his students every single day, listen, I know I've told you that the assignment is 10 pages, but I know that someone's not going to remember, and we're going to be facing each other and ask, why is it 10 pages if I was 5? And the point I'm making behind this is, with coaches, I constantly bring up the topic of explaining the why, and making sure that they effectively communicate to their athletes. When I have that moment where I'm raising my voice and I'm bringing down the boom, my why is for the scenario of you, the athlete. You, the athlete, in this particular moment. It's not you as a person. I'm not yelling at you as Jimmy, the person, or Freddie, the person. I'm upset right now because of the scenario that's in front of us, and the scenario in front of us and the decisions that you made, or maybe the lack of effort, or whatever it may be, the specifics of the situation, rather than you, the person. And I think you bring that up in your point. You're saying that, like, when I'm explaining or I'm yelling and I'm getting into a guy, and the other 25 to 26 that are watching, how are they interpreting it? It's to maybe go back and constantly explain. I'm not yelling at you as the person. I'm yelling at the person who's the hockey player, the athlete. I'm yelling at the athlete right now, side of you, and the fact that you just totally forgot everything we talked about. You didn't give that love. So we only have a couple minutes left, and I really want to put this out there to people. We have young hockey players that listen to this pod all the time. And with the world being in the spot that it's in with coronavirus and young athletes who are in junior hockey, maybe even going into junior hockey, I want to explain to them how important it is for them to take control of their career and feel empowered to reach out to coaches like yourself. And I'm wanting to let them know that it's okay to reach out to you. Is that okay?
Absolutely. There are a lot of hockey players out there, and college hockey, let's just say from that point of view, it's going, we try to watch as many kids as we can in the US, kids from Canada, at division, kids from Europe. Now kids are coming in from Australia, from China. The kids are coming in from all over. So there are literally thousands and thousands of kids that we are either looking at or we watch in games or that contact us. So be one of those kids that contacts us, that, and we don't necessarily have an unlimited budget to where we can go to every rink in North America and watch kids. So if we don't know who you are, we're going to know the very top elite, 1-2% of players in the country. But those aren't the type of players we're going to get at a school like ours, right? They're going to go to Michigan or North Dakota or wherever. But you have to research and kind of know who you are a little bit as a player. That, yes, we'd all love to go play at Boston College or Minnesota or Wisconsin, whatever. But we may not all get it. So let's, be a little realistic in our ability and go, well, here's what I want to study. If hockey's not in the picture, here's where I'd like to be, the type of school, the size, location, things like that. And if those things fit, again, we're a somewhat small school, mostly STEM, technology, engineering, computer science, business, nursing. We're in a city, urban campus. If that is what is for you, then you should be contacting, reaching out via email is typically best. Especially for younger kids, to try and contact coaches. It just gives us more information on you, and it gives us a point of reference where if I get a phone call from a player and then 8 months later, well, I don't have that conversation, written down somewhere where, with an email, you've got it. It's in your email. It's there somewhere, right? It doesn't get lost in translation somewhere. So